are charged under section 120B, 489B, 489C along of Indian Penal Code along with section 16, 17, 18 and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. If your lordship and your ladyship is well versed with the facts of the case, counsel would like to proceed with the arguments.
Yes, please.
Much obliged, your ladyship. The council would like to inform you that issue 1 will be addressed by speaker 1 and issue 2 will be addressed by speaker issue 2 and issue 3 as well will be addressed by speaker 2. Your lordship and your ladyship, it is contended that as per issue 1 to constitute an offence, issue 1 states that whether A1, A2 and A3 are to be held guilty under section 120B of Indian Penal Code read with section 120A of Indian Penal Code or not. Your ladyship and your lordship, as per the section 120A, to constitute an offence under Indian Penal Code, this section, there are 4 main ingredients as per 120A. That are namely, there must be 2 or more accused who agreed to do or caused to be done an illegal act or an act which is legal by illegal means. These 4 ingredients are further elaborated in the case of Rajiv Kumar versus the state of Uttar Pradesh by Supreme Court, where they gave 4 major ingredients to constitute an offence of criminal conspiracy. Namely, there must be 2 or more persons, there must be an illegal act or an act in an illegal way. Thirdly, there must be meeting of minds. Fourthly, there must be agreement regarding the same. The lordship and your ladyship, in the present matter, it is to be mentioned that all the ingredients mentioned in the present matter are fulfilled, as there are 3 accused in the present matter who agreed to transfer FICNs, which is an illegal act, and the intention of all 3 accused can be gathered from the CDR, that is call records of suspects being established, the connection between all 3 accused, and it establishes that all 3 of them were aware about the malicious intention of each one of them. Furthermore, your lordship and your ladyship, this was not even a first time offence. The accused A1 and A2 under para 17.10 of charge sheet admitted before NIA that they used to receive 10% commission on such deals. Therefore, this was not a one-time offence, they were habitually committing this offence. Furthermore, your ladyship and your lordship, it is contended that in one of the recently decided matter, the High Court of Karnataka, in the matter of J. Vinita, but also known as Thangam, of the state of Karnataka, where the facts of the case were very similar to ours, and the accused in this present case was charged with section 120B, 489B, 489C of Indian Penal Code. Your lordship, your ladyship, it was a appeal against the conviction order of NIA court, and the same appeal was dismissed by High Court of Karnataka, and the conviction of accused with sentence of life imprisonment was upheld. Therefore, it is humbly submitted before this bench that section 120B, that is criminal conspiracy, does sustain beyond reasonable doubt, and hence A1, A2 and A3 in the present matter should be held guilty of offences under section 120B read with 120A of Indian Penal Code. If your lordship and your ladyship are satisfied with the arguments of issue 1, the council would like to proceed with issue 2 and issue 3.
I just have one question. Should I ask court master or should I ask at the end?
Ma'am, you can ask it.
So in issue number 1, you have mentioned about the CDRs,
Yeah.
right? CDRs in support of your case. So like, I want to know, how is it admissible? What is the first principle that you have to follow in order to make this admissible? So what have you followed in order to make the CDR admissible?
Ma'am,
My question is clear.
it is mentioned in the point 17.10 of charge sheet, ma'am. It says that in the examination by Special Cell Delhi Police, accused Sameer disclosed several names.
I understood that. So, but then there are certain principles that you have to follow in order to make this electronic documents admissible, right? So, like, this is a question. Like, what CDR in order to make it admissible? Have you placed any certificate along with that?
Yes, ma'am. It is provided by the. There is one particular authority, ma'am. Just let me check. Yeah, the CDR's analysis was provided by.
I think counsel, you are not being able to understand what I'm trying to put to you. So like in order to make this CDR admissible, there's one principle that you have to follow, right? Some certificate that you have to add along with that. So I just wanted to know like under which section have you applied for that certificate, or it's not in support of that?
Ma'am, this said opinion was provided by CERT Institute of New Delhi, ma'am. The certificate is. It is given in point 16, 17.16 of the charge sheet. And
If-
also, ma'am, section 788A of Evidence Act says about presumption as to electronic documents.
So 65B is very important, right? In order to make that admissible.
Yeah, 65B of Evidence Act. Shall we proceed further, ma'am?
You can ask the learned judge, Mr. Manojji, if you have anything to ask.
Lordship, are you satisfied?
Yes, yes. Please proceed. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Your Ladyship and Your Lordship. The Council on behalf of the state would like to argue issue number 2 and issue number 3 of the present matter in your hand. So issue number 2 states whether A1, A2 and A3 be held liable under section 489 capital B and 489 capital C of Indian Penal Code 1860. Your Lordship and Your Ladyship, it is humbly submitted before the Honorable Court that A1, A2 and A3 should be charged with section 489 capital B, 489 capital C of the IPC because the ingredients that are necessary for the offence to be charged is satisfied. I would request both Your Lordship and Your Ladyship to refer to page number 4 of the memorial, which says the essential ingredients of the section of 489 capital B of Indian Penal Code. It states that using as genuine forged or counterfeit currency notes or banknotes, whoever sells to or buys to or receives from. So Your Lordship and Ladyship, please note that it is receives from. So the accused in the present case, A1 and A2 have received the counterfeit notes from A3, and any other person otherwise traffics in or uses as genuine or forged or counterfeit currency notes. So the counterfeit currency notes can be established because of the report that we received from the CFSL, that is an authority which is stated so to examine all the currency notes. So the experts on examination recovered FIC that the notes were fake Indian currency notes of high quality. So, Your Lordship, you can see that A1 and A2 had received the fake Indian currency notes from the accused, that is A3, and hence 489 can be established. But to establish the mens rea under section 489 capital B, the council would like to cite an authority case name called as State of Maharashtra versus Somnath Thapa. It was held in this case that mere possession of the counterfeit notes is also punishable under law. So even if there is no mens rea, if the mere possession that A1 and A2 had the possession of the counterfeit currency notes is also punishable under this section. Also, Your Lordship, the malicious intention of the case can be established because all the accused were going to use the FICNs for a bomb blast in Pulwama on the 15th August if they were not stopped by the police. So, Your Lordship, we can see that the police has stopped. That is why the LS defense has not continued and the LS defense has not occurred. The said FICNs were collected from A3 at Malda, West Bengal, and were to be delivered in Pulwama for the bomb blast on Indian Army convoy. So this itself is enough to establish that the accused had some haste against the government and its policies, and that is why they wanted to do something against the government and use these FICNs to counterfeit the counterfeited currency notes to circulate and damage the monetary stability of India. When I say damaging the monetary stability of India, I'm coming towards the sections of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So, Your Lordship, the issue number 3 is whether A1, A2 and A3 be held liable under sections 16, 17, 18 and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967. It is humbly submitted that the accused were found to be taken instructions from A5, who was planning to carry out a bomb blast in Pulwama on 15th August. Your Lordship, please refer to section 15 clause 3A of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. It says that it defines the term terrorist act. So Terrorist Act says damage to the monetary stability of India by way of production or smuggling or circulation of high quality counterfeit Indian paper currency notes. So Your Lordship, A1, A2 and A3 and all the accused shall be held liable for circulation of high quality counterfeit currency notes, and the same shall be punished under section 16 of the UAPA, that is punishment for this particular terrorist act. The same section, that is section 16 shall punish for the terrorist act done under section 16 of the UAPA, and section 17 talks about punishment for raising funds or for terrorist act. So your lordship and your ladyship, the raising funds for the terrorist act can be established as accused A1 and A2 and A3 were always in a group, and they were always against the government, and they had haste against the government and its policies, and they were planning for a bomb blast attack, planning to carry out a bomb blast in Pulwama on 15th August. So this also states that they were using the fake Indian currency notes for raising the funds for this particular terrorist attack, that is the bomb blast in Pulwama. So it is contended that the punishment for raising funds for terrorist act under section 17 shall also be charged. Section 18 says punishment for conspiracy. If the charges under section 120 of IPC is already established, then for section 18 of UAPA shall also be established because of the same ingredient, that is conspiracy. Coming to section 20 of UAPA, it says punishment for being member of terrorist gang or organization. Your lordship and your ladyship, to define what punishment for being a member of terrorist gang or organization, the council would like to refer to section 2L of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. It says that terrorist gang means any association other than terrorist organization, whether systematic or otherwise, which is concerned with or involved in terrorist act. Here, A5 has been, in the charge sheet, A5 has been also known to be in touch with the terrorist organization called Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is mentioned in the schedule of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Hence, your lordship, all the offences under section 16, 17, 18 and 20 under UAPA shall also be established as per the fact that that reveals in point number 17.25 of the charge sheet reveals that A5 had also crossed the border at night and went to Bangladesh on the 20th/6/2015 and was planning to execute a bomb blast on Indian Army convoy on the 15th August. To cite another authority, in the case of Rajim SK and another was the state of West Bengal, it was held that the accused in that particular case had procured and circulated counterfeit Indian notes, even going up to the extent of establishing contact with Bangladeshi nationals. So that is the reason why they were all convicted, and it was an appeal. That's why their bail was also rejected. So, your lordship and your ladyship, if the lordship and ladyship are satisfied with the arguments, the council would.
I hope both of you are from final year. Both of you are from final year student?
No,
They're not allowed to reveal, sir.
They're not allowed to reveal.
Okay. So you go through by CRPC?
Yes, your lordship.
CRPC, evidence, IPC, and
So, good. Then please tell me in which provision police recorded the statement of all accused?
161 of CRPC.
161, read with 162.
162 of CRPC.
In prosecution case, it is the disclosure statement of MONU, right?
Yeah.
So it is in front of magistrate or it is in police custody?
In front.
Could you repeat the question, sir?
You stated in your research paper that the statement of accused MONU is a disclosure statement, right? So I would like to know whether it is recorded before the magistrate or it is in police custody.
That's so silent.
Facts are silent, but it is given in the charge sheet that MONU was in judicial custody, not police custody.
So it is relevant according to Evidence Act?
It is not admissible.
It can be used for contradiction and corroboration, sir.
Yes, sir.
Under which provision of Evidence Act?
Just give us some.
Okay, please tell me why you use 128A read with 120B. 120A and 120B.
Yes, sir.
Why you use read with 120A in your charge sheet?
Sir, because 120B is the punishment clause, and the ingredients of a particular criminal conspiracy are given under 120A. That's why both of the sections should be read together.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Lordship.
Thank you, Your Lordship.
I just have one question for you. So, like with regard to the disclosure, how and why is it admissible in this case? Why?
Could you repeat, Your Ladyship?
So, the disclosure statement that you are referring to, why is it admissible in this case? Because usually disclosure statements are not admissible, right? So, why is it really admissible in this case? There must be certain provisions for certain special acts and all, right? You must have gone through those.
Yeah. The statement given in NRA, why are they in the question code, why are they admissible?
Give us 1 minute, Your Ladyship.
So then let's make it very simple. Like, what is the difference between 25, 26, and 27 of Evidence Act?
Just Ma'am, 25 deals with the confessions made to the police officer. 26 deals with the confession by accused in custody of police, not to be proved against him. And 27 deals by how much information received from accused may be proved.
So it's called recovery statement, right? Recovery statement also, right? You are in final year.
We are not allowed to
We're
reveal.
not allowed to reveal that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like just one thing, like if in case since you are a prosecution and you are like on behalf of the prosecution, say like in a case you have come across a very important evidence, okay, in your file, but then the police had not met that person as a witness. So in that case, what would you do as a prosecution? Under which provision of law would you ask the judge to call that witness or to bring that evidence into record? Under CRPC.
Remember 313 of CRPC.
311, right?
Yeah, 311, 330. Thank you, Your Ladyship. If Your Lordship and Your Ladyship are satisfied with the arguments, the Council would like to go ahead with the prior. Wherefore, in the light of the facts, issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, this Honorable Court may be pleased to convict accused A1, A2, and A3 under Section 489 capital B, Section 489 capital C, read with Section 120 capital B of the Indian Penal Code. Convict A1, A2, and A3 under Section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967 and or pass any other order that deems fit in the interest of justice, all of which are respectfully submitted to Learned Special Judge NIA Patiala House Court at New Delhi, and for this the state shall has been duty bound forever pray. Counsel for the state rests.
Defense team, please do allot your time.
Speaker 1 will 2 will also speak for 10 minutes respectively.
Please repeat it again. Sorry.
Speaker 1 and 10 minutes respectively.
Okay. Continue.
Council seeks permission to start the proceedings. Much obliged, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship. First of all, the Council would like to go through the summary of facts. On 1st January 2015, demonetization took place, and on 24th February 2015, information was received that two passengers, Samir and Moonu, are traveling from Farakka Express train, and after that, it was raided by the special shell of Delhi Police on 25th February 2015 at 10:55 hours. Two suspects, Samir and Monu, were detained with 5 lakh currency found from each of them respectively, who revealed that they got the fake currency notes from Kalu Mama. The seized fake currency notes were sent for examination, and a preliminary report of CFSL was received on 16th April 2015, and was sent on 16th April 2015 and was received on 25th May 2015, which revealed that currency was of high quality. By order dated 30 April 2015, Ministry of Home Affairs directed NIA to investigate the case. On 11th May 2015, NIA registered the case under Section 120B, 489B, 489C IPC and Section 16, 17, 18 and 20 UAPA. The following facts were disclosed during the investigation. It was revealed that 5 lakh FICN was to be delivered to Pulwama for attack on army convoy. Samir disclosed several names and told that he received 10% of commission during the investigation by the Special Cell of Delhi Police. The role of Kalu Mama was revealed by Monu during the custodial investigation by Special Cell. In investigation by NIA, Samir disclosed involvement of Kalu Mama, Peter and Sohail, who were planning to do a bomb blast on army convoy on 15th August. And Monu disclosed that Kalu Mama received instructions from Pakistan and Bangladesh, and code for bomb blast was Dulhan ko sajane ka waqt aa gaya hai. The team NIA went to search Peter on 27th May 2015, but he absconded, and further Peter committed suicide and was found dead on 22 June 2015. A team was also sent to Malda and it found Kalu Mama, and he was arrested on 23 June 2015. During the examination in police custody, Kalu Mama revealed that he took FICN from Sohail, who was the main conspirator and was in contact with leaders of Lashkar-e-Taiba. No evidences could be found from Sohail house as they all were destroyed by Kalu Mama. If the councils are aware of the facts, if the judges are aware of the fact, the council would go through the statement of jurisdiction. Much obliged, your lordship and your ladyship. The prosecution has brought the case under Section 13 of National Investigation Agency Act 2008. The council, on behalf of Samir and others herein after respondent, would like to submit that the penal action imposed on the accused is invalid and not justifiable. The respondent has not indulged in any series of such criminal activities where his acts would have created a kind of disturbance in the society, and has not in any manner restrained the public law or order of the state. The acts carried out by the respondent will not in any manner created a state of terror in the mind of people. The state has constructed penal provisions only for falsely framing the respondents. The council shall deal with issue 1 and issue 4 respectively, and my co-counsel shall be dealing with issue 2 and 3 respectively. The first issue before the Honorable Court is whether the accused is guilty of the offence of criminal conspiracy under Section 120B of Indian Penal Code 1860. It is humbly submitted before the Honorable Judges that respondents have not conspired against the state in series of crime. The two elements of criminal conspiracy as held by the Honorable Court times are the agreement between the two persons, and the agreement should be to do an illegal act. In R versus Tolson, it was stated that under a common law principle, an offense is constituted by the presence of mens rea and actus reus. The conspiracy explicitly requires mens rea through the use of word agreement. There is nothing in the fact or Monu were entered into an agreement with the main master. Since there is no agreement to do so, they could not have conspired and committed the offense under Section 121, 489B and 489C of the IPC. Therefore, it is submitted that no offense of criminal conspiracy has been made in absence, as there is absence of mens rea. Coming to two leading case laws, two leading judgments given by the Honorable Courts, in the case of state national capital territory of Delhi versus Navjot Sandhu, it was held that a few bits here and a few bits there on which the prosecution relies cannot be held to be adequate for connecting the accused to the offense of criminal conspiracy. In the present case, there is no fact stated by the prosecution which shows that there was direct connection of Samir and Monu with the bomb blast which was going to be carried on the army convoy on 15th August. Also in Subramaniam Swamy versus A. Raja, it was held that suspicion cannot take a place of legal proof, and existence of meeting between the accused person is not by itself sufficient to infer the existence of criminal conspiracy. The contention of the petitioners that Samir and Monu were in connection with Kalu Mama is not sufficient to prove the existence of criminal conspiracy, as there is no legal proof to show that they were involved in the bomb blast which was going to be carried on the army, as the only reason given by the prosecution is that all the evidences were destroyed. The council humbly submits that mere possession of fake currency notes does not imply in any manner involvement of respondents in any type of conspiracy. And even if it is supposed to be true that those notes were to be used for carrying out a bomb blast on army convoy, there is no evidence which proves that respondents Samir and others had any intention regarding those activities, and they were only transporting the currency to a place where they were asked to do so, and they were getting a 10% commission for that. In addition to this, the prosecution has failed to bring the person before the honorable court whom they claim to be the mastermind of the attack on the army convoy, and there is no evidence or witness against the respondent. Coming to issue 4, whether the accused is guilty of offense under section 489B and 489C of IPC 1860. It is humbly submitted that the respondent is not, it is humbly submitted before the honorable judges that the respondent is not guilty of offense under section 489B and 489C of Indian Penal Code 1860. The allegations of the prosecution is invalid as the respondents were having no knowledge about the currency notes being fake, and they were not intending to use it as a fake currency for any purpose, and they were just told to take those packets for a destinated place, and they had been only asked to deliver that notes to a particular person. Therefore, there is lack of mens rea on the parts of respondents. The provisions of section 489B and 489C are not applicable in the instant case, as even what the prosecution is saying would have been true. If what the prosecution is saying would have been true, then also only according to prosecution, they were taking those fake currency notes to Pulwama, and the law is absolutely clear. The law is absolutely crystal clear that the provisions mentioned in sections are applicable only when a person's intent is to use the fake currency notes as a genuine note, but not to deliver the currency notes. But to deliver a currency note does not constitute a crime under the said sections of IPC. The convictions of respondents under section case are not established in any manner, and the prosecution has failed to prove so it does not have any evidence that those currency notes were to be used as genuine, so required by the law to create a criminal liability on the part of respondents. In addition to this, all the cases cited by the prosecution in their memorial are related to fact that the accused were found using the fake currency notes. But in the instant case, the respondents were only carrying the notes. They were not using the notes as a real currency notes. If the honorable judges are pleased with the arguments of the council would like to The counsel would like to rest his arguments, and my co-counsel shall be dealing with other issues in the case.
I would like to ask you one question. In your argument regarding to 120B, you admitted 198, 498, sorry. You admitted that.
No, your
Your
lordship.
case is
The,
demolished over there only. You admitted that this is not an offense to carry a note. What is
your
how your
lordship,
defense is prepared?
your
You
lordship,
admitted your case.
the council is like to state that if the contentions of prosecution is true, if it is true, though it's not true, but if we believe that that contention is true, then also the act of respondent does not
Okay.
amount to
Now tell me
conspiracy.
one more thing. How Navjot Singh Sidhu judgment is, how you rely on that judgment? The facts on
Much obliged.
what you use the term bit over here, bit over there. How this case is like that?
Much obliged, your lordship. It's your lordship, in the case it was held that a few bits here and a few bits there on which the prosecution relies, a few bits here and a few bits there, basically
Your all
means,
bits are there only. So explain me here and there.
your lordship, in the present case the facts, the prosecution has not cleared cleared all the facts on which they are relying. There is ambiguity, and the facts regarding the involvement of Samir and Monu in the bomb blast and conspiracy are not clear. So the prosecution cannot rely on the facts which are not clear in themselves.
Okay.
Much obliged, your lordship.
I have one question. In your memorial, in case number 29, you have mentioned about Pakala Narayan Swamy versus Imperial. So how is this case relevant for this defense?
Much obliged, your ladyship.
29.
The council shall answer this question in few minutes. Till then, my co-counsel can deal with the rest of the issues.
If the honorable judges allow, the co-counsel would like to proceed the proceeding of this case.
Okay, proceed.
Much obliged, your lordship, your ladyship. The co-counsel will be dealing with issue number 3, that whether the charges under Unlawful Activity Prevention Act 1967 implicate upon the accused is valid or not. Unlawful Prevention Activities Prevention Act 1967 is a strict liability legislation with immense power vested in it, so to safeguard the national security. As mentioned by in the prosecution, that the respondent was in possession of the fake currency note, it is to be stated that the fake currency note does not imply an act being carried out against the state, and there must be some substantial or direct evidence of a call of violence now or in any future, which both sufficiently strongly and pervasively to infer that an act of terror activity was to be carried out. It is it is relevant to mention here that the possession on the part of the respondent is based on the report that was given by the CFSL, which only states that the currency is of high quality and it is fake currency. But as mentioned by the respondent in the fact that it is presumed that the demonetization was occurred on 1st of January 2015, and the respondent was found in the possession of fake currency notes in a span of nearly 2 months only. It is to be stated that to create a fake currency, it is not an easy task and it takes a longer period of time. Therefore, on the part of CFSL, the only conclusive proof that they have given was that it is of high quality, but no reasons or no parameters was given as to how these currency notes are fake from those of the original currency. The council relies on the case of Muhammad Amis versus State of Delhi, AIR 1980. It was discussed by the Honorable Supreme Court that the onus which rests on the accused under Section 105 of the Evidence Act is not an onus on unshift burden, which lies on the prosecution to establish every ingredient of the offense with which the accused is charged beyond reasonable doubt. And it is being presented by my co-counsel that there was no conclusive proof or any proof that can be used as a substantial proof that proves beyond reasonable doubt that the accused was or is has committed any crime under the Unlawful Activity Prevention Act as mentioned in under section 16, 17, 18 or 20. Moving further, that it is also evident to be mentioned here that the mens rea is an essential ingredient of the criminal offense as stated by my co-counsel. It is sound rule of construction adopted in English law and also accepted in India to construe a statutory provision creating an offense of conformity with common law rather than against the statutory expressly or by necessary implication excluded mens rea. In Nathulal versus State of MP, AIR 1966, the mere fact that the object of the statute is to promote welfare activities or to eradicate the grave social evil is by itself not decisive of the question whether the element of guilty mind is excluded from the ingredient of an offense. Here, when Monu and Samir were detained on the information of a person who is placed outside the railway station, it is a question of doubt that how a person who is outside the station knows about the arrival of two individuals carrying the specific amount of fake currency notes and by what train they are coming and what will be the in what bag they will be carrying those money. And as stated in the initial FIR by the special cell, the NIA also dropped the charges that were to be made under the waging war against the government, which can also be taken as a conclusive proof that NIA has not been able to provide any sufficient documentation or any evidence which can be used against the respondent in the case for which the respondent is being held in the jail for the past 6 years. If the honorable judges are satisfied, the council would like to pray.
Your Ladyship, the question which you asked regarding the case that was related to the issue of waging war against the government, which is dealt by my co-counsel. So I would request him to kindly clear your doubts regarding the respective case.
Yeah, so you can, whoever is going to do, you can proceed further, right?
Ma'am, can you please repeat the case as I'm
Case
in my
number 29. In your memorial, you have mentioned about Pakala Narayan versus Imperial, right? So I'm asking, how is this case relevant for your defense?
and the council pleads ignorance, ma'am. The council will answer as it prays, or the co-council for the matter will be able to answer the question in a matter of minutes. As right now, the co-council pleads ignorance.
Also, can I ask
Okay,
another question? So, I want to know, like, you have, as per the charge sheet that was submitted and the evidence that were led, I've seen that the defense have also led an evidence, right? You have examined your own witnesses as a defense witnesses. You are aware about it, right? Defense have also led an evidence in in support of your defense. Are you aware about it? Yes, defense counsels. Am I audible?
Your your
Yes.
ladyship, can you please repeat? Your voice is
So
cracking.
defense accused persons have also appeared as the defense witnesses in your defense, right? So like I want to know under which provision of CRPC can an accused be appear as a witness in his own case?
Your ladyship, just to clarify that the question you are asking is that uh, under what provisions of CRPC and accused can be uh, use the defense of
As a witness in
as a
his
witness.
defense, yeah.
Okay. Uh, um, uh, CRPC section 313.
You're almost there.
Uh, oh, the
Your ladyship, it's section 312, 312 of CRPC. 31315 of CRPC states that accused person to be a competent witness. 315 of CRPC.
Okay.
So if the your lordship and your ladyship are satisfied, the council would like to pray. Shall I proceed?
Yes, please from my side.
Whereof in the lights of the facts and the instant cases cited, written pleading and authorities cited, it is most humbly prayed before this honorable court that it would be pleased to hold that the accused are not guilty under any sections or provisions provided of the IPC or the Unlawful Activity Prevention Act, as the case may be, as under section 120B of IPC or section 16, 17, 18, 20 of the UAPA, as well as under section 489B and 489C of the IPC, or may pass any order which it deems fit and in the lights of the justice, equity, and good conscience. And for this act of kindness, the respondent shall be duty bound, forever humbly praised.
Now, if the learned judges are satisfied, I would like to say that prosecution can go for a rebuttal.
And your ladyship, it is
I would like to ask one more question from defense. Why you are not going for the charge made under 120A is wrong? If sometime charge sheet come in wrong section, then what is the remedy you avail? Is there any remedy in CRPC if the charge sheet come in wrong section? Or it helps the defense?
Your Lordship, the question you are asking is that whether we are contesting against 120A of the IPC.
Yes, because they filed a charge sheet in 120A.
Sorry, sir.
120B read with 120A.
Oh, okay, sir. Much obliged, Your Lordship.
So what is the remedy you have in your defense? Whether this charge is correct or not. This charge sheet is right.
Your Lordship, the judge has the power to return the charge sheet, and then, if required, the new charge sheet is to be made with the correct provisions.
What defense can do? Under
Sir,
which provision of CRPC?
The counsel
Regarding
plead
charge.
ignorance.
It's 215.
215.
Okay. Now prosecution can rebut it.
Much obliged, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship. It is contended that, firstly, for the purpose of this present case, as per the moot court competition rule, demonetization took place before considering this, before the occurrence of this offence. Therefore, it is not admissible. Secondly, Your Lordship, this is a criminal trial and not civil trial. So we are not able to understand what the purpose of defense stating respondent and petitioner while they are pleading. Thirdly, Your Lordship,
Your Lordship, the defense taken by the respected opponents, they said that the prosecution could not establish a relationship between the accused and the bomb blast. But the prosecution is trying to establish the guilt that the accused has related to Section 15, Clause 3A, that is damaging the monetary stability of India. And it is not about bomb blast, because the bomb blast has not even taken place. We are dealing about the things which are the offenses which have already been committed, that is damaging the monetary stability of India.
furthermore, Your Lordship and Your Ladyship, the jurisdiction applied by the defense counsel is not appropriate in this present matter.
According to their memo, the jurisdiction is Section 171 read with Schedule 1 of the CRPC, but during pleading they changed the jurisdiction to Section 13 of the NIA. So we are not sure about the jurisdiction that they are appearing in front of this court, Your Lordship.
If the judges permit, the counsel would like to reply the rebuttal given by the prosecution.
Please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. The contention regarding the jurisdiction, since the prosecution is coming to the court under Section 13 of National Investigation Agency Act 2008, therefore, it's the duty of the respondent to contend that the section under which they are coming to the court, that is not admissible in the court of law. Secondly, the question regarding the demonetization. The counsel is only relying on the fact that the demonetization took place in January 2015. So it was and it's not an easy task to generate so much fake currency in that short span of time. So it is just to add on. The counsel is just adding on the facts as provided by the moot court organizations to the moot court teams regarding the demonetization date.
Prosecution, you want to say anything? You want to submit something? Prosecution?
Your Lordship.
We have one more contention, Your Lordship. Under the issue 2 of defense, they have accepted that the incidents can at the maximum amount to the possession of forged or counterfeit currency notes. So indeed, they are agreeing to the offense of 489A and 489B and 489C of Indian Penal Code.
Also, Your Lordship, issue number 2, according to the defense, is whether accused is guilty of waging war against the government. the pleading of the said offense, that is 121 of IPC, did not take place, and they did not establish how the accused are waging war against the government, how they are not waging war against the government. So I just wanted to know. Defense.
The question of the prosecution regarding the carrying of fake currency notes. See, the section 489B and 489 expressly mentions that if there is intention to use those fake currency notes as a genuine, they were only carrying on the fake currency notes. So the
Article C, IPC says possession. Even in the case of state of Maharashtra versus Somnath Thapa, it says mere possession of the fake Indian currency notes shall be held punishable under section 489, capital C of Indian Penal Code. So whether they had the knowledge or no, this was a full-fledged judgment by the Supreme Court of India, and that is why we have to rely upon this case, because of this judgment of the Supreme Court of India. And I had one question about 121 IPC. It is waging war against the government. What do you have to say about 121 IPC?
As provided in the cases, and we cited that in the first preliminary by FIR by the special cell, it was 121, but when the NIA was filing the charge sheet, it dropped the charges. That means that 121 was not charged on any of the accused. This proves that we were not, the accused or the respondent was going against or waging war against the government. Therefore,
The cell unit had charged the accused on 121A, but then there was an order which was sent by the Ministry of Home Affairs, agreed to the NIA, where the transferring of case took place from the special cell unit to the NIA. There the charges were dropped. But my question is, why are you arguing this section 121 IPC when it is not even there in the charge sheet, is what I'm trying to say.
we are
Now,
trying
counsel,
to say,
please stop. This is not a place
Your
for
Lordship.
arguing about these
The
things.
bar leadership.
You can pursue your own case, no? Prosecution lead their own evidence, and then defense take their own defense. But this is not a place to ask more and more questions again and again. Okay, court master.
We apologize, Your Lordship.
Thank you, participants. Now you can leave the meeting. I would like to request the judges that please stay on this. Participants, please leave the meeting.
much obliged, your lordship, your ladyship.
much obliged, your lordship and your ladyship.
Judges, please send the marking either on mail or the WhatsApp.
Sending
Thank you.
We're sending it on. I'm sending it on WhatsApp right now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now,
So can we leave now?
yeah, sure.